Hey, Preston. Hey. Um, I don't even know why I called. I know you're not gonna pick up because you've been gone. You've been gone for almost a month now. I miss you. I miss you a lot. There's not a day that goes by where I don't think of you. And I wish that I could have been there for you more. I wish that I had reached out more. I knew you were struggling, and I didn't reach out. This is going to be something that I regret for my entire life. I wish that I could just hear your voice one more time. Or, I don't know, listen to you laugh or see you smile. Or get one of those big bear hugs that you give. I wish that you were here with me. And I've been trying my best to be healthy and cope and move on, but that feels bad too, because it feels like I'm caring less. But I'm not. I'm always gonna care, and I'm always gonna be sad. I just don't want to feel numb to this. I don't want to forget how much you mean to me, how much you meant to me. feel like there's a lot of things that I wish I could say to you right now, and I wish that you had picked up. I mean, a lot of this just doesn't even feel real still. Like, I flew home for 2 days. You know, I went to your funeral. I said goodbye to you. I left a letter at your grave. I mourned with your family. I mourned with our friends. And yet, I came back here and it feels like that was all a dream. That didn't really happen. And I find myself still feeling like that. And I feel like this was all just a bad dream, and that you didn't take your own life. You're still here. But I tried to call you just now, and you didn't pick up, and the reality makes itself clear. You're not here anymore. And that breaks my heart. I miss you. I wish you could see. I wish you could see how much we all miss you. And I hope that you can feel how much we love you.
Satisfied with your message, press 1 to listen to your message. Press 2 to erase and re-record. Press 3.
Bye, Preston.
Testing. Hello? Yep, it's showing up. Elijah asks, is that the dude? If you are talking about this tall boy right here, yes, this is Eric. It's crooked. It's so crooked. That's better. Hannah says hi. There it is. Can you turn that up just a little bit? Never mind.
Hello. We haven't hit 10K subscribers yet, so I'm actually gonna forego that. Thank you for being here for Megan's My Story album listening party. Shout out to yourselves. Woo! So now we are going to start a Q&A session, and we're going to be answering some of your questions. So feel free to ask some questions in the chat. We are listening and reading real time. So whatever questions you have at any given moment, please shoot away. We have been casually drinking a little bit because that's what adults at listening parties do. Wow, fancy artists sipping wine. Yes, yes. So we are going to get started. Just need to pull up the questions. And so to start off, we're actually gonna start by giving the mic to Megan and just asking a little bit about the work. Any thoughts? What does this album mean to you? A little background about the album.
Right. So some of you have already gotten the email that I sent out with the story behind the album. But for those of you who didn't RSVP, can you go turn that down a bit? For those of you who didn't RSVP, I'll tell you the story behind it. So I wrote my story in two parts. I started the project, it was just about mental health. I started it in 2020, in summer of 2020. It was right after the pandemic hit. I had graduated into what felt like chaos. I didn't have a job, I didn't know what I was doing, and I felt kind of lost. So naturally, I wrote 6 pieces of music just about my own mental health journey. But I didn't feel like it was really complete, so I archived the project and just moved on. I had no intention of ever returning to it until the events of this last fall. I lost a close friend of mine, Preston James. He took his own life on September 23rd, 2021. And after that, I wrote My Letter, which was track 8, and I wrote the voicemail, and I split that into 2 parts. And then it just made sense to kind of, take my own story of mental health and put it together with the story of the impact on what that loss had on me. So yeah.
Thank you. So we're going to start with a fairly easy question. Which was your favorite track to write and why?
Probably the second track, This Is My Story. So that was actually my senior project for advanced electroacoustics. Shout out to Spock and Tommy. You guys were in that class with me. Yeah, so the project was to just craft a bunch of synths and make a piece from scratch. And that was the thing. We weren't allowed to use presets. So every sound you heard, except for the drums, because it's kind of hard to craft drums from synthesizers, every sound you heard was handcrafted from scratch by me. So that was really fun to do, and it took me quite a bit of time. So
Nice. And we're going to move on. And a question from James Pion. Words versus beat. Which is more important to you and why?
definitely beat, and I don't really have a specific reason for that. It's almost I barely ever do actual songwriting. I don't really write lyrics anymore. I used to do that when I was 17, but not so much anymore. So definitely the beat.
Very good. comment below what you used to do when you were 17, because we all have those embarrassing stories. Why not? Next question. Okay. Personal favorite track. This is a very simple question, but I figure that this is kind of intriguing. So yeah, personal favorite track from you.
It's either between This Is My Story, track number 2, or Interlude 2, track number 5. I really like track number 2 because, again, like, I made all of those sounds from scratch. Track 5, the one that's in 7/8, for those of you who are musicians in the crowd, I like that one because it bops. Simple answer.
Nice. So we have a question from EAH Music. How much of the sound design was done analog? Good question.
Almost none. I mean, so the voice bits that you guys heard throughout, I did sound design with that. That was actually a recording of my own voice. It was a therapy exercise. I was reading from a letter, and so that, I guess you can consider that analog. I ripped the audio from that, and yeah, just used that as little audio bits. At the time that I wrote the majority of the tracks, I didn't have my Novation Peak yet, so somebody asked earlier if I had used the Peak, and the answer is no. Most of the stuff was soft synths and, digital.
There you have it. All right, next question from Crystal K. What is your approach when writing melody lines? Another great question.
It's kind of a hard one. My approach is to mess around until I find something that sounds good. I know that doesn't sound very like what's the word, trained, I guess, but I find for melody writing, like, I just kind of improvise until I find something that I like. And I like to have a good mixture of like intervals and steps. And I really want to I always have to ask myself, like, what is the emotion that I'm trying to convey? Because that will change the direction of the melody for sure, and some other things as well.
Thank you. Moving on. Let's see. Does the order of the songs have a hidden meaning to them?
Yes. Not a hidden meaning. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It's the order of my story, right? So I kind of sandwiched the entire album in between the voicemail that I left my friend to kind of, I wanted the first track to say, like, set the tone, like, this is what it's about, this is who this album is for. And then again at the end, like, reminding us after that entire journey, kind of like, again, this is for my friend who passed away. So
nice. So I just know that this took about 1.5 years of writing altogether. So how did you find the motivation after 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months after taking a break and walking away from it? What made you come back to this album, or what made you come back and add on to a pre-existing work?
Yeah, just the events in my life, I went through some really hard things, and I'd never had any intention of coming back to this album, but I also wanted to release new music because I hadn't done that in about 1 year, and I was looking for things that I could put out there, and here is this album almost fully ready to go, and it's just sitting there. And like, I think part of the reason why I didn't want to put it out right away is not only did it feel incomplete, but it was also like this is a very raw topic, it's a very personal and emotional one, and you have to be really vulnerable as an artist to put yourself out there and So I think I was a little bit scared to do that, but I feel like it's my duty as an artist to be vulnerable and to share my experiences with the world because, my main goal with this entire thing is to just like reach out to people and say like, hey, like, you're gonna be okay.
Nice. It's a good answer. I like that. Next, we have Shireen's question. Do you have a method for developing textures, or is it more of a trial and error for it? What's up with that?
I wouldn't say I have a set method that I follow each time. It really is mostly trial and error. Sometimes I have kind of an idea of what I want, and I try to figure out how to get there. But most of the time, I'm just kind of experimenting and letting the sounds take me wherever they go. Um, it's also it's a great technique to just start with presets and like mess with settings until you make it your own. I've done that more times than I can count. So yeah, but no, not really any method. Just uh, keeping an open mind and trying to be creative with it. So, and knowing what you're doing, like knowing the tools and stuff, is actually very helpful.
And we have another question from Robert Rodriguez Music. Thank you, Robert. And for a personal project like this one, when do you know when you're done?
That's kind of a loaded question because I finished the album, the 6 tracks, and I left it because I didn't feel like it was done. Um, my professor, Kubilay Uner, he used to always say, or he always says, a piece of art is never finished, it is only abandoned. And I feel like there's some truth to that. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, and I think a lot of you guys are too. And it can be a little bit difficult. Yeah, it can be a little bit difficult to kind of reel yourself in and be okay with whatever flaws are in a piece. Um, for me, it's just like however I feel. Like if I feel in a space where okay, I'm proud of this. I can step away from this, and this is my completed piece of art, right? When I get to the point where I feel like that in my heart, like that's when I know it's over. But obviously, um, sometimes that takes a while. Hence the fact that this project was being made for a year and a half. So.
So to answer your question, Robert, the answer is I don't really know. That's what it sounded like. It just depends. So, also, I promise we're not this professional and straightforward 9 times out of 10. I feel like we've just been kind of drinking and we're like slightly nervous, so we're just like being like professional. Yo, come on, please. Also, side note, this is my apartment. If you ever want to rent this space out for an interview, hit me up, DM me. All right, next question. Okay, so I think this is Elijah. Any hidden Easter eggs or small details in any of these tracks that may be easily missed, but cool to notice on the re-listen?
I'm thinking. Um, Other than my sound bites of my own voice saying words, not really. I mean, the track that I did the most sound design work on was This Is My Story, and I'd have to go back and look at it to see if I actually put any Easter eggs in there. I feel like there's probably a 90% chance that I used some weird noise that I had recorded of our professor, Spock. I probably hid that in there somewhere. If Elijah asked that question, he knows. He knows. You know.
Wow. There are some lines in vocals that you cannot kind of decipher what they mean, but there are some. I think if you spend the time on it to really just listen, I think there is a deeper meaning to it. Not that I really know what I'm talking about, but yeah, I think there's some good re-listening value, and there's a lot of things you'll notice. There's a lot of layers, and there's a lot of things that go into the production, and it's pretty airtight. What do I know though? So, um, next question. All right, what would be your advice for young new composers? Wow, inspo question.
I always laugh a little bit when people ask me that because it's like, why are you asking me? I don't know what I'm doing. um, any advice? I guess just like put your stuff out there, you know. Try to get people to listen to your stuff. That's something that I'm working on as I go as well. But just try to keep an open mind, I guess, to all of the different possibilities that are available to you. You don't have to commit to just one thing, you know. I thought when I first like started pursuing composition um, seriously, I thought that, you know, like, oh, I can only be a producer. Or no, I have to put all my eggs in one basket and be a film composer. No, I want to be a game composer. But, like, there's really no limit. Like, you can do whatever you want to. Just figure out what makes you happy and follow that.
Deep. Um, Also, I think on the lines of new composers, there's a lot of ways to get out there. So just explore the internet, Reddit. There's a whole subreddit for people finding out stuff.
Yes, and one more thing to add, like, depending on what your goals are, you know, individually, um, there are certain paths. There's more than one way to get to where you want to be. So, whoever asked that question, who asked that question? Oh, I teach your son. That's Tomas's mom. Hi, Olga. Um, yeah. So, I think Tomas is already on the right track. So I'm really excited to keep working with him. Yeah.
Nice. All right, just a few more questions. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot. It's never too late. Ask away. All right. So, moving on. So, a little bit of a deeper question. Is there a question you wanted to be asked by somebody listening, or is there something you want the listeners to receive while they are listening? And, how does that affect the listening experience? And what does that do for what does that do for the meaning of the album? A lot of questions at once.
Yeah, that's like four questions. No, there was nothing that I wanted to be asked. I really just wanted to share the story behind the album, the reasons for why I wrote it, and the message that I wanted to convey, which is like, hang in there. You know, we all have our problems, we all have our issues. Um, just don't give up, you know, because that decision to give up, it really, really hurts the people that you leave behind. And so I want the listeners of this album to just, you know, feel like they're not alone, that it's gonna be okay, that they will be okay. And just like a reminder to persevere. That's all I really want.
Nice. And another question that kind of ties in is there a specific inspiration for the direction of the album, the sound, or just the aesthetic of the album? Like, do you have any composers or just artists or just you know a sunset or anything like that that you were looking at that influenced this album?
Yeah, I would say honestly my biggest influence was my undergrad professor, Neil Anderson Himmelsbach. We all just called him Spock. Spock, yeah. Um, he, yeah, I mean, he was my professor for 4 years. His style of music was exactly kind of what I wanted to pursue, which is just a bunch of weird stuff and mixing together a bunch of different influences, you know, because I really like blending electronics with band and then orchestra. That's my favorite thing to do. So his music probably was my biggest inspiration.
Shout out to Spock. Moment of silence. Shout out to Spock. Wait. All right, sweet. What is one thing you learned about yourself as an artist and as a person while making this album?
I kind of write music in a manic depressive way. Yeah, so that's pretty much how this album went. Like I would go into these manic episodes where I would just like black out and write the entirety of, an entire track in one day, and then I won't even remember like, oh, how did I do this? Um but I guess the biggest thing that I learned was to just keep trying and keep chipping away, because there were a lot of points while I was writing this album that I was just not happy with the way things sounded. Um, and so for me, there's, a fork in the road. There's two paths. Either I can say, this sucks and give up, or I can keep chipping away at it and see if I can make something that I'm happy with and that I'm proud to show other people.
Nice. So we're kind of nearing the end of these questions, unless we have more questions. We have a few more minutes. Yeah. So, one question is, how would you quantify the amount of effort you put into this amazing album?
How would I quantify it? About a 6. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't quantify it because, like, I honestly don't really remember how hard I worked on it in the summer 2020. I think it was just something that I let flow out of me. So I didn't ever, like, push myself, to write something. If I was stuck, I would step away. I mean, I did it for a year and a half, right? So obviously I have no problems with that.
And is there any advice on just, your workspace or just the progress or just how you work? Is there a point where you say, I've worked, 4 hours, I need to step away, or I've worked on this for, X amount of days? Like, where do you tell yourself, or, when do you kind of gather and ask yourself, like, okay, what is one thing that, I would say, if you're working on this and you need any help with just figuring out a process, do you have any advice for stuff like that?
Yeah. So something that I've learned over the course of this last year and a half, is that there's no, like, separating mental health from physical health and spiritual health and, all of the different categories. There's no such thing. Like, it's all just your health. And so I learned that it's important for me to take time to, really make sure that I'm taking care of my health. And so that means I don't overwork myself, or at least I try not to. It's kind of hard to when you're in grad school, but, I try not to overwork myself. I take my walks with my dog almost every day. Shout out to Jazzy. I love her. So yeah, I take my walks with my dog. I try to get out into the sunshine. If I'm feeling nasty, like, I try to give myself the space to feel whatever I feel, because when things happen and it's hard to deal with, I can't just, like, put that in a box and continue on with my life. I'm not that kind of person. I'm a person who feels and processes. And so when I need to take a break, I listen to myself, or at least I try to. Haven't been perfect at it, but, I'm learning. We're all learning.
And we're gonna come around to one last question, and we have two questions that's kind of the same thing. Crystal asked, "What's on the horizon for you in terms of future projects?" And Shireen also asked, "Do you have any more secret albums and projects up your sleeve?" So kind of same question, but do you have anything, in the near future or, far future that you have in mind, or do you have some cooking already in the stew?
First of all, shout out to Shireen. I go to grad school with her, and I am not sure if anybody else from grad school has tuned in, but thank you, Shireen, for being here. That really means a lot for me. Yes, there is something in the works. There's I've talked to some of you about it before. I have a new concept album. Hopefully, I'm gonna try to get it out in the summer. If not, then it's going to be next year probably. Um, it's a 7-track collection, and each track is based on a chakra. So yeah, I won't say much more about that. It is in the works though. I've got 2 tracks done. 3 tracks done. And I'm working on the others.
Nice. So that's going to be it for our Q&A session. Ethan, your question was a little too late. Is Jazzy allowed in your studio when you're working? I'm going to go ahead and answer this one for you. Yes, Jazzy literally lives in the studio. Jazzy barks sometimes in the studio. Jazzy sometimes...
It picks up on my microphone.
And it's just like, girl, chill out. Anyhow, so... Do we have one last question for Colleen?
From Colleen?
Yeah, what helps you get into your creative mode?
Oh, is that Colleen Mallet? Hi, Colleen. That's my voice teacher. What helps me get into my creative mode? It depends. Anytime I'm feeling something really strongly that I want to pour out into music, that helps me be creative. Other than that, I think probably listening to other people's music and getting inspired, that's one of the biggest things. Yeah, and just like being mindful, trying to capture life with sound. So I do have synesthesia. Synesthesia. So yeah, so if for those of you who don't know what it is, like I kind of see color with sound, or sound has color for me. So I feel like I'm painting every time I write music. Yeah, these are the colors of the album. It's the vibe. So yeah, we're gonna wrap it up. So thank you guys so much for tuning in and for listening to my album. I hope you all liked it. Yeah, and thanks for asking all those questions. It was really great. I am so thankful to each and every one of you, and I love you.
All right, and that's a wrap. So we're going to wrap up this Hot Ones Hot Wing Challenge interview. So that camera, what do you have to say to your fans?
I'm turning it down.
Oh, okay, well, thank you very much for